What's up, guys? I just did my Grand Theft Auto 5 review, so I promised that I was going to do a video where I talked a little bit more in depth about specific aspects of the game, particularly the violence and stuff like that. But I also want to talk about specific situations and specific instances with the characters because I think it's really important to keep this stuff in mind, because some people just completely forget about it. All they see is the violence and oh my god, the evilness and oh. Rockstar doesn't just do these things just cuz. You know, that it's not like they support violence. It's not like they support torture and all this stuff. And I know that I've talked so much about this scene, the torture scene in Grand Theft Auto 5, but there's one thing that I haven't really talked about, that a lot of people just don't mention, and I'm like, that's the biggest thing about that scene. I didn't talk about it in my Grand Theft Auto 5 review because I didn't want to spoil anything, because this video is going to contain some major spoilers for the game. So yeah, if you haven't played it yet, just go check out my review first and then decide whether you want to play it, and then probably go come watch this. So I think the first thing that I wanted to talk about was the point to Grand Theft Auto. Grand Theft Auto is a parody. It's not like your funny haha type of parody. It's more of a serious type of game. It's not like it's not like Saints Row, you know, where they take the parody completely to the goofy side. But it's a parody of society for sure. I mean, you totally see that, especially when you're listening to the radio. I mean, some things that some of those radio announcers talk about, it's just like, oh my god, you could totally see that they are making a parody of society. Like, for example, there was one guy on the radio that was talking about, we need more plastic people in television or something like that, and like really serious about it. And I'm like, that was making fun of Hollywood, like totally making fun of it, like saying we need more plastic people because there aren't enough out there. The immigration mission, that one was also, I mean, I was like, oh my god, this is messed up. But at the same time, at the end of the mission, it totally turns around on you, and you're like, you really see like the reality behind it, and you see like what Rockstar is trying to say. It made you see the other side, and that's what I think Rockstar does so good. And that's one thing that I think a lot of people aren't seeing. They're just seeing the horribleness of things, and they're not really seeing the message. They're not really seeing the undertones that are so strong. They're seriously making like a point to big issues in society. I really loved that mission, the whole immigration thing, because at the end of it, that scene with the guy where he's saying that, you know, he's been in these lands for years, and like he's been here longer than, he's like, I've been here longer than you. I've been here longer than any of your family members, and all this stuff, and they're going after him like as if he was some animal or something. And the parody, or the joke, not the funny haha joke, but the joke, kind of like, for those of you that have seen Watchmen, I really, it really comes to my mind a lot. The comedian, he was called the comedian because he was the only one that got the joke of society. Like, nobody else saw it. Nobody else knew what the joke was except for him. And he was, it was funny to him because it was like, nobody gets it. Nobody sees how stupid these things are, how some things just don't make sense, like the way that society does things, and why does society do things like that. It's like, there is no reason. It's just like, that's just how it is. And how much ignorance plays a part in it. And Grand Theft Auto 5 really did such a good job, if you really sit and analyze it, and not just react in the moment, but sit there and actually think about it. What were they trying to say? Like, there was a reason to it. Like I said, it's not like Rockstar is promoting this stuff. It's not like they're promoting violence. It's not like they're promoting torture. They're not. It's just, it's showing you what society is. It's like, this is what society is. And then showing you the other side of it, and making you personally think, why do we do that? They add the humor to it. Like those radio shows that you hear, they add the humor to it, but there's so much reality to it. It's like, it's so true. And they make fun of it because it's pointless. A lot of these things are pointless in society, and they're so huge nowadays that you're just like, why? But let me get to the much talked about torture scene, because that's, I think, one of the biggest instances. I said in my review that I needed time to think about this. That's why it took me a while to do my review, because I've always been a defender of video game developers having the freedom of making a mature game, and going all out, taking risks. I love that, because I'm like, that takes guts. That really separates the video game developers from the ones that really want to tell the story that they want to tell, and evolve video game storytelling from what it used to be. And the ones that just want to play it safe, and really are worrying more about sales than about telling a story. There are your middle grounds, of course. So I'm not saying that they're these extremes. There are your middle grounds. But I do respect a lot those video game companies that take that risk, and say, you know what, we're probably going to get a lot of heat because of this, but it's something that we think is important to say. So that torture scene, because I've been talking about it, a lot of people sometimes misinterpret, thinking that I am against that scene and all this stuff. I'm not. What I needed to think about, though, was whether, and I only needed to think about this for people that really couldn't handle that scene, and because I know that kind of stuff does make people uncomfortable, and it was crossing that line that I talk about in my Grand Theft Auto 5 review, where, the line where you have rape, child abuse, all of those intense issues that people have problems with, that people just, they just feel uncomfortable. And for some people, it might be uncomfortable. A lot of people were saying in the comments, like, that torture scene didn't bother me at all. And that's completely fine. That's you, that's the way that you react. But some people, it really, really, like, so much that they stopped playing the game. They seriously thought it was a bad game for doing that. I did cringe. I was like, oh my God, I can't believe we're actually put in the situation of interacting with a torture scene. More for the people that couldn't handle it. Because I was like, this is going to give Rockstar so much heat. It didn't really affect game sales, at least I don't think so, because it's been one of the best selling games, I think, of all time. But it did give Rockstar a lot of heat, and it also added to that stigma of video gamers that violence in video games make people violent, because look at what they're doing in these games. So I was like, oh man, that's one of the reasons why I cringed the most, because of that. And I thought, should Rockstar have made that scene maybe like a cinematic that was skippable? Exactly the same, but just like, a cinematic where you weren't interacting, because a lot of people had problem doing it themselves, where it's like press A to pull their teeth, or like press A repeatedly to shock them and stuff like that. That was disturbing to some people. So I was like, should they have done it exactly the same, but just a cinematic that you could have just skipped? And they could have just avoided all of this stuff, because they could have just said, you could have just skipped it, so shut up. But now it's like, no, it was part of the mission. And that's what I was thinking. I was like, should they have done that? Should they have not have done that? And I came to the conclusion that I really don't think they should have done it differently, because the mature rating is there. Obviously, it's got violence. Every Grand Theft Auto game has violence. And what game really doesn't have violence? There are no games out there that don't have violence, except for what? Harvest Moon? There's so much to that scene. There is so much that people are missing, because they're so tied up to the fact that torture is bad, and that, oh my God, they made me interact with torture. They're so tied up in that they don't stop to think a few major things. That, first of all, it's not real. Pressing A is not the same as actually pulling somebody's teeth out. So it's not real torture, but they made it that way, interactive, so that you could really experience that moment more than just watching a scene that could be skippable, when that moment was so important, not only for Trevor as a character, but for the storyline, because people saw that scene and were like, "Oh my God, Trevor is horrible. He's a psychopath. He's Satan walking on Earth. He will eat your babies." But they forget about why Trevor was doing it, who was making him do it, and what happened afterwards. Those factors are what make that scene so important to the game. Because and it's what people miss, or at least the people that really get so hung over the horribleness of the torture, they forget about this stuff because nobody mentions the rest. Nobody mentions that Trevor wasn't doing this on his own terms. Like, Trevor wasn't doing this because he wanted to. When he was put in the position of having somebody that he actually kidnapped, did he torture them? Of course not. He treated them like a guest. Patricia, when he had her over at his house, he was straight up with her. He sat her down and he's like, "You know what? I don't know what's going to happen to you." She actually enjoyed being at Trevor's house. And Trevor would even tell Michael, "Take care of her and like make her feel at home," and all this stuff. And he treated her so well that he actually ended up like falling in love with her and telling him that he was actually a good guy, like a good man. So Trevor wasn't doing the torture because that's what he does. It's not like, "Oh my God, Trevor's so bad, look at what he's doing." The FBI guy, the FIB guy, was the one that was doing it. And he's supposed to be in a law enforcement position. He's supposed to be somebody that actually protects society, that actually protects people. And he is instigating this torture. That's the corruptness of that scene. It's that this person, this law enforcement, is doing this, not Trevor. Trevor is a psychopath anyways. You would expect that from Trevor. But this cop, he's the one that's doing it. He's the one that is making Trevor do this. The monster in that scene is the FIB guy, not Trevor. Because what happens after the torture? The guy tells him, "Kill him," and he leaves. And Trevor, does he kill him? No. He unties him and tells him, "You got to get out of here." And Trevor actually drives him to the airport to get him out. And he's telling him, "You got to go, dude, because they're going to kill you." And the guy's like, "I have a family." And he's like, "Well, forget about them because they're going to kill them too." That's what people forget, is if Trevor was such a monster, if that scene was so horrible, look at how it ended. That guy still walked away alive. And if that FIB guy had stayed there, he probably would have killed him. But Trevor didn't. So that scene was so crucial. When I thought about that, when I was thinking about that whole scene, and not just the torture, I was like, if they had done it differently, it really wouldn't have had that impact that it had. It wouldn't have had that impact of seeing Trevor, the way that he reacted to that, and that he was the one that saved that guy. And the monster, it was the FIB guy, because he was the corrupt official. I mean, that's what was messed up. I think a big point to that scene, and it proved to be right, was that people judge only superficially. They only judge you superficially, and that happens a lot in today's society. At least in I'm talking about the United States, because that's how it is here in the States. The society just judges you superficially. They don't actually get to know people. They don't actually like see what's behind that person and then judge them. It's like so much ignorance that it's sometimes it gets to the point where people that really don't deserve bad stuff to happen to them, it happens because of these superficial judgments. And that's what was happening in not only in that scene in the game, but also while people were playing it. So I think it was brilliant for Rockstar to do that, because it only made their point even stronger, that people judge superficially. And when playing that scene, I think people were like, oh my god, Trevor is horrible, I can't play this, like, torture is bad. But it's like, that wasn't the point. It wasn't the point. The point was that you forgot who was making him do that. You forgot that Trevor is a crazy guy anyways, but that FIB guy isn't. That FIB guy is totally fine in the brain. He works for the FIB, and he's supposed to protect people. He's supposed to serve the society. He's supposed to keep them safe. And look what he's doing. Another thing about that same concept that Rockstar was going for, about judging people superficially, is with Trevor. I mean, Trevor is I see Trevor as like the number one example of the parody that's going on here in Grand Theft Auto 5. Because yeah, Trevor is a messed up guy. He has psychological issues, and you see that throughout the whole game, but you also see that a lot, like why he started off with these psychological issues at the end of the game with his mom. So you actually see that he has reasons to be messed up. And so much crap has happened to him that he's messed up. But everybody else around him, it's like everybody's like, oh, Trevor's the worst. Everybody you ask, Trevor's freaking crazy. Trevor is evil. People hate Trevor because he's so bad. People love Trevor. But like I said in my review, every time someone says, I love Trevor, I'm not a psychopath, I swear, it's like they're not thinking about the character. They're not thinking about what Rockstar was showing you the whole time throughout the game. And when I actually stopped to think about that, I was like, oh my freaking god. Okay, if you take Trevor and you compare him to Michael or to Franklin, you see just how bad the rest of them are compared to Trevor. Because Trevor does some crazy stuff, right? Like I said, that's you can't argue with that. But he's got a lot of reasons to be messed up in the brain. So let's just look a little bit at everyone else. Michael is not completely out there like Trevor. He's not. He's a little more sane. He is a criminal, but he's more sane about it. I mean, he's pretty much like the leader, because he knows how to plan these things out. He ended up betraying his best friend. He ended up lying. He wanted to leave that life because of his family, right? Because he wanted a better life for his family. Did he give them a better life? He gave them almost a worse life. His family ended up hating him because he was just such a jerk. And he was actually going to see a psychiatrist. He was actually going to see a shrink. And did it help? It didn't help. Not only because he didn't want to put his part, but also because the shrink sucked. That was a parody in itself right there. And then look at Trevor. Trevor tells Michael so many times, I mourned you. I mourned your death. Trevor, the person that people think is a monster, he mourned Michael so much that he got a tattoo of Michael. I mean, they were brothers. He loved Michael so much that when he found out he was alive, he was like, oh my god, Trevor, the psychopath, the crazy person, was a better friend than Michael ever was, because Trevor was always loyal to him. He was always loyal to him throughout the whole game, no matter what Michael ever did to him. And Michael screwed Trevor over so many times, and Trevor was always there, even though Trevor always always said that he was gonna kill Michael and like, oh, don't put him in front of me because I'm gonna freaking kill him and all this stuff. He never did. In fact, when Michael was really in a tough spot after him and Trevor had fought, who came to Michael's rescue? Trevor! Trevor came to Michael's rescue. When Michael thought that Trevor was gonna kill him on sight, did he kill him? No, he helped him. Trevor was the most honest. He was the best friend out of all of them. He was the truest. Even though he is the character that people say that he's a psychopath, crazy monster, he's gonna eat your children. He was the most human out of all of them. If you stop to think about it, Michael was the most egotistical guy in the game. All he thought about was himself. When he's talking to Trevor and he says that Franklin had called him and that he knew he was in a tight spot. And the first thing that Michael said was, "Why are you calling Franklin? Blah, blah, blah." And then Trevor's like, "The first thing you did was thought about yourself." He was like, "You didn't even ask what the problem was." And Michael stops and thinks and he's like, "I did do that." And he's like, "I'm sorry." Michael, all he ever did was think about himself. Even when he said he was thinking about his family, he wasn't. Because he didn't give them a better life. He didn't really even try. He was kind of just giving up. He cheated on his wife. Yet he's attacking her when she's cheating on him. When he was the one that started it all. Franklin is really egotistical too. Because Lamar is there to prove it throughout the whole game. Lamar is always telling him, "Man, it's about us. It's about the hood. It's about the family." And Franklin is like, "No, screw you guys. I want money. I want to get out of this because I'm not making any money and I want to make it big." That's all. He was greedy. Franklin was greedy. Even if it meant getting rid of your friends, your family, the people you grew up with, the people that fought beside you in the hood. He left them like nothing. He left them so easy. I mean, he did care about them and all that. He did help them whenever they wanted to. But he was constantly whining about it. And like, "Why do I always have to come and help you? And I'm not even making money out of this." And he made new friends because it benefited him more. He started to move on up. Now, Trevor, like I said, I mean, even when him and Michael had gone through that big fight where they were like, "We're going to kill each other here." Even after that, Trevor still came to help Michael. I think the most messed up thing when it comes to these characters and who they really are and how much Trevor is getting all the heat when he's really not as bad, or he doesn't even dare to do the things that Michael has done or Franklin, is the endings. The endings of the games. If you guys haven't seen the endings, the multiple endings, such as ABC, you guys really should see them because that is what really shows who is who. So pretty much Franklin has a choice. You either kill Michael or you kill Trevor, or Franklin could just not deal with any of that and kill these guys instead, and with Michael and Trevor on his side. I chose C, which was that, to have them all live. But if you actually choose A or B, killing Trevor or Michael, it is so messed up. Because Franklin already giving the Franklin, why Franklin? Already giving Franklin the option of killing Michael or Trevor. And him actually taking one of those options. Him actually capable of doing that already says so much about Franklin. Already makes him worse in my eyes than Trevor. Because this is the horrible part. Because if, let's say, you go towards killing Trevor, Franklin calls Michael and he tells him that he's going to go kill Trevor. And Michael comes along and helps. I'm like, oh my God, this is your best friend, dude. Michael actually helps to kill Trevor. And it just feels so, oh my God, it felt horrible. That was probably the worst for me. I never played through that, but I saw it. And I was like, that is worse than the torture scene. The way that Trevor dies. it was so unfair. So unfair because Trevor has been the truest. He has been the most loyal out of all of them. And he was always so real to them. He's like, man, we were together. We're brothers. And they never saw him the same. For them to gang up on him, to kill him, the way that he died, it's a car chase. Michael arrives to the spot later, but Franklin is chasing Trevor. And Trevor's like, I can't believe you're doing this, blah, blah, blah. And they get to this place. Trevor crashes. And he can't walk. He's like paralyzed because of this crash. He falls out of his truck and he crashes into like some gasoline tank or something like that. So there's gasoline all over there's fuel all over the ground. And he's just dragging himself on the ground and just like screaming and telling how messed up this is. And I was like, and then Michael comes and he catches on fire. And he burns to death. And Michael and Franklin are just standing there watching him. And I'm like, oh my God. Oh my God. That was horrible. Now, if Franklin chooses to kill Michael, I was like, I gotta see this. What happens? Franklin calls Trevor. And he tells him that he's gonna go kill Michael. Does Trevor help him? Of course not. Trevor, he's like, don't even call me. You guys are messed up. And he just hangs up. And Franklin has to do it on his own. And I'm like, that sucks. Michael, oh my God. Like, that's one thing that people should see. The endings, because they're so messed up. There's no more superficial here. There's no more superficial judgment. It's just they take their masks off and they show you who they really are. Franklin and Michael and Trevor is still that same loyal guy that has always been there. He's like, I don't want any part in this. You guys are just the same. You guys are the same. You guys are meant for each other. And he just leaves. And you don't deal with Trevor anymore. And Franklin has to go kill Michael on his own because Trevor will not have part of it. But when you call Michael because you're gonna go kill Trevor, Michael actually goes with you to kill him. That was so messed up. I seriously felt sick when I was watching that. I was like, oh my God. Yet people talk so bad about Trevor. That's the joke. This psychopath is the most human. He is the one that has more emotions than any of them. As crazy as he is, he's the most real. I thought that was brilliant on Rockstar's part. To take a character and really make people react the way that society actually reacts towards specific people or specific concepts. Every now and then I would keep thinking, I'd be like, man, Trevor almost has more of a heart than any of them. Because he actually, he fell in love with Patricia. And it was real. Like, the way that he would talk to her, I'd be like, oh my God. Like, he'd tell her he missed her. And oh my God, the way that they would talk, it would just break my heart. I rooted for them. I rooted for Trevor and Patricia because I was like, oh my God. And then when Trevor has to take Patricia back to her husband, and he's telling her, he's like, I lose everyone I love. And I'm like, oh my God. Oh my God. It just broke my heart. I was like, this is so messed up. It's just the one character that is most criticized by a lot of people, because I know a lot of people love Trevor, but I don't think a lot of those people really understand the depth of Trevor as a character. But it just, all of those criticisms against Trevor, saying, I can't believe Rockstar made you play the psychopath and that tortures people and kills people because it's fun. They don't stop to think about how messed up he is and how life has just screwed him up. It's just that, like I said, that superficial judgment, and not so much what's going on in that mind. Why is he like that? And you see that in so many instances throughout the game, and some people just miss it. And it's like that was gold right there. Those scenes were gold. If you miss those scenes, you completely miss the character of Trevor. That's pretty much what I wanted to talk about, just to make that clear, because a lot of people miss it. Every time I see Grand Theft Auto has all those news reports and like all those articles about how video games make people violent, and video games like Grand Theft Auto make people violent. They're enforcing that parody. They're enforcing the joke. They're not in on it. They don't get it. I don't know about the rest of the world, but I know that the United States in general has a huge issue with violence. And I think it's not because of video games. It's because of the accessibility to weapons. The problem is not that these games have violence. Movies have violence. And movies have existed since forever. Freaking music out there right now. Rap music, hip hop music. The things that they talk about, it's like, oh my God. Some of those songs are just freaking disgusting. And you've got kids listening to them. Oh, it's a song. But the ones that get so much bad heat, video games. Why? Because you're playing it. And you're interacting with it. But it's like, it's a freaking story. It's a game. It's not real. Like I said in my review, people need to detach themselves when playing a game, because if you play that game as yourself, morally, you take in your morals, your beliefs, and all of that, that's when you don't enjoy the game as a game. You don't enjoy the story. You're constantly you're going to constantly be feeling uncomfortable. You're going to be constantly be criticizing it. When it's just a story. It's an interactive story. That's it. It's triggering your imagination in ways that other media outlets don't, which is an amazing accomplishment in technology. It absolutely boggles my mind sometimes, the things that they're capable of doing. Yet people criticize it instead of praising it like it's friggin', I don't know what, training you for the war or something. It's not, dude. Come on. The bigger problem are those guns in the basement that kids could just find. The bigger problem is being able to go to a gun shop and buying a gun when you're mentally dysfunctional. Let's say those shootings, those horrible shootings at schools that have happened not too long ago. The problem was guns, right? People getting the accessibility of guns and going and shooting out a school. So what was the solution? Let's get rid of guns, or let's have a tighter grip on the selling of guns or the accessibility of guns? No. Let's give guns the teachers. Isn't that the problem? It's like, man, if you just took that passion that you're using on attacking a freaking game that isn't even real, if you took that passion and you really put it into good use, like towards the accessibility of weapons that actually leads to violence, man, I think the United States would be a little bit safer. Anyways, that's pretty much what I wanted to talk about. When it comes to Rockstar, you got to remember that they're so good at the details. That's what they excel in. So I would pay more attention to those details, especially when it comes to Rockstar. Little details just not only add to the experience and add to the believability of the characters and the world, but those little details, they tell you something about what the game is about, what the game means, and what they're telling you about us. Hopefully you guys found that interesting. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. If you guys didn't see my Grand Theft Auto 5 review, you could go check it out. I'll link it somewhere here. It is a really long review, but I thought it was pretty interesting. I tried to keep it a very helpful review, and even though it is 40 minutes long, it is still spoiler free. I really don't think I would have been able to do it justice by making it shorter. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll talk to you guys later.